everyone. Welcome to Mondays with Michelle, a sanctuary where we unite to inspire hope and peace through engaging discussions about mental health, relationships, and parenting. I'm Michelle, your guide through the sanctuary. I'm a mental health therapist with over 14 years of experience, an aspiring author currently querying agents, a peacemaker, and an advocate for those without a voice. Today, we will discuss boundaries through the lens of a garden protected by a fence. The gate allows us to decide who we allow to enter. All right, and we will begin with a card. I chose a card today from the deck Healing with the Angels. And the card I drew, which as usual I found to be very fitting, is power. So we have an angel of power with us. And what the card means, you now allow yourself to express your power. Being powerful is safe for you, knowing that you express your power with love. You have all of the power of the Creator within you, all the power of divine love, wisdom, and intelligence is available to you. You have the spiritual power to see angels and the future. You have intellectual power to tap into the universal wisdom of the one mind. You have emotional power to empathize with others, and physical power that is truly unlimited. The angels ask you to give them any fears you may have connected with being a powerful person. Your angels see a quiet and beautiful aspect of your true power stemming from the only power in the universe, divine love. Allow yourself to shine with this radiant love so that your true power can radiate out into the world in miraculous ways. I thought that was lovely for us because working on boundaries definitely helps us to tap into our personal power. And when we are connected to our power, it helps us to decide where exactly our lines are around us, of where we begin and where we end and others begin. All right, so we will go ahead and get started delving into the secret garden. I really enjoyed talking about boundaries in regards to the secret garden. It seemed a little bit more magical and applicable to discuss boundaries in this way. We begin by envisioning our heart as a secret garden. An inner sanctuary blooming with magnificent colors and delicate fragrances, reserved for only the most trusted companions. A mystical fence encircles the refuge, protecting it from the perils of the outside world and the trespassers who may disrupt its tranquility. The fence surrounding our heart provides a clear boundary for our emotional landscape. So we have this garden where we're nurturing the plants, we're cultivating the land, we're planting what we choose to plant, we're caring for it, we're watering it, we're removing any weeds. And that fence provides that clear boundary for protecting that landscape, our inner landscape. That fence protects us against abuse, exploitation, betrayal. It can help us when interacting with those with an addiction and any other problem that may put our garden at risk, that may cause pain, hurt, suffering, damage. It's important for us to learn how to say no when developing boundaries. By learning to kindly decline requests that exceed our capacity or compromise our well being, we can lovingly tend our garden, ensuring that it flourishes and thrives in its own enchanting way. People who maybe struggle with people pleasing, we'll talk a little bit about that later, can really struggle to say no. They're afraid of how other people are going to respond, if others are going to be mad at them. Um, they won't have a relationship anymore if they say no. Boundaries help us to do so in that kind way. We can absolutely make sure that we're tending our garden and we have the time and space to be able to do so. It's not our job to tend other people's gardens. It's our job to tend our own to make sure that it's a safe, healthy, and thriving place for us. And that is flourishing. So we can practice saying no to other people. Maybe we don't want to do an activity, we don't want to go somewhere with someone because we're exhausted from our week and we need some rest. So it's absolutely okay to say no to things that exceed our capacity or compromise our well-being. There are times where it's absolutely necessary to do so too. For example, teenagers, we teach them to say no to peer pressure as part of healthy decision making. We can say no to certain things that do not serve us and say yes and welcome in the things that do. That's our garden and the fence around it. Then we have the gate at the front of the fence. The gate symbolizes our ability to determine who and what we choose to welcome into our lives. The gate is actually the reason why I chose the angels deck today, because the image I found of a gate had an angel on top of it. And I thought that was so fitting because we can have some help and guidance from our higher power, whatever higher power is. Um, and when we ask for that assistance, our higher power can lead and guide us to decide who is a healthy individual to welcome into our garden and who we need to close the gate to. We want to open the gate to those who display kindness, respect, honesty, other positive traits and qualities. So, people who enhance our well being, they're there, they're willing to help out, they help us tend our garden. So, they're respectful, they respect how we need our garden to be tended, what our needs are. And then we close the gate to individuals who yell, belittle, name call, or engage in other damaging behaviors. In my experience, people have the most difficulty setting boundaries with people who are emotionally abusive. They don't recognize it as emotional abuse, I think because to a certain extent it's so common. What I can tell you though is just because something is common does not mean that it's healthy. So if people are yelling at you, belittling you, name calling you on a regular basis, it can be necessary to set some boundaries with them. And we'll talk a little bit more about maybe some different sort of boundaries we can put in place in different situations. That leads us to the concept of emotional safety. When we're emotionally safe around someone, we tend to be able to open the door, to the gate to them, and allow them inside of our garden, inside of our heart. So, emotional safety involves holding space for others' feelings, utilizing active listening techniques, respecting personal boundaries, expressing empathy for others' experiences, taking responsibility for actions, and engaging in honest dialogue. So, holding space for others' feelings is sitting with the feelings. Let other people express their feelings, their emotions, without trying to fix it for them. So, you just are that sounding board where people can talk openly and honestly and express what's going on inside of them. Active listening techniques are huge. That can involve our voice tone, reflecting back what we hear, making sure we're listening to listen and not listening to respond. So, there's a lot of those different active listening techniques that we can utilize to promote and provide an emotionally safe environment. In addition to setting personal boundaries, we also need to respect the personal boundaries that other people set for themselves. So, if someone has a personal boundary, I'll use one of mine for example. I tend not to do anything on Sundays other than maybe go to church, maybe go to the grocery store, those types of things, depending on if I do those things on other days. Then, because Sundays for me are what I call self care Sundays, they're my day to do things that I want to do, not things that I necessarily have to do and where I can really rest and recharge my battery so I'm ready for the following week. Then expressing empathy is connecting with the other person. You can feel their feelings, be able to relate to what they're going through. Taking responsibility for our actions is a really important one. None of us are perfect, no matter how hard some of us try to be perfect. We can't be perfect. We are going to make mistakes at points in time. So, if and when we make a mistake, we own what we did and then we work to make amends for that mistake. So, we do something to make it right, whether that's apologizing, whether it's, in the example of the garden, you accidentally pulled a flower up instead of a weed. Making that one right, perhaps you could replant the flower if it's able to be replanted. If it's too damaged, perhaps that means buying the person another flower to plant in its place. That way, you're making amends for the wrongdoing that was done. And then being honest, not lying, not minimizing, denying, blaming the other person, just being honest with your thoughts and your feelings in a respectful way. All of those things create and cultivate emotional safety. Then things like criticism, judgment, shame, denial, betrayal, deceit, and rejection erode the sense of safety. Minimizing, denying, and blaming, making you statements, blaming the other person for all of the difficulties in the relationship. That leads us then to when we need to close the gate. There's a difference between what's called boundary crossings and boundary violations. Boundary crossings happen when someone makes a slight error that causes minimal damage. So, like I said, we're all human, we're all going to make a mistake. We're going to be tired or run down or drained, overwhelmed, and we're going to do something that harms the other person. So, when someone makes a boundary crossing, we just communicate the harm that was done to us, and typically it's something that is forgivable. Forgiveness needs to be a part of life relationships as well. And it's a pretty important part of relationships, again, because nobody's perfect. An easy example of a boundary crossing is you're in a conflict with a friend, a romantic partner, some type of relationship. You're having a disagreement with them. Things begin to escalate and your voice raises, and both of you are yelling at each other. That's a boundary crossing. It's disrespectful communication. It's not going to be productive at resolving conflict if you're both yelling at each other. It's not going to get anything done, but it happens. Sometimes people raise their voices. So, an easy consequence to put in place at that point in time is to communicate, hey, I think we need to take a time out. We need to take a break and come back to this when we're both calm. Then, when both of you are calm, both of you can apologize for raising your voice at each other and then address the situation, whatever problem is going on, in a calmer way and engage in some problem solving and conflict resolution to be able to move forward. And then forgive each other for the damage that was done because it was minimal. On the other hand, boundary violations tend not to be forgivable. They are like a severe thunderstorm that ravages everything in its path, leaving destruction in its wake. You can imagine someone trampling through the garden, uprooting the perennials that we worked so hard to plant and nurture. In those types of cases, ending the relationship becomes a necessary step to protect our inner sanctuary. Some of those things that are boundary violations are abuse, exploitation, betrayal. Those are times that we need to close the gate and lock it and not let them inside our secret gardens again. Some people have a really hard time with boundaries. If I'm being honest, most of society has a hard time with boundaries, but some people have even more of a struggle with it than others. Such individuals tend to have passive communication styles where they tend to say yes, they tend to be very soft spoken individuals, and they have a hard time standing up for themselves and saying, that something hurt their feelings or that something wasn't right. And then I talked about it earlier, the people pleasing aspect. Sometimes individuals want to prioritize the well-being of other people's gardens over the survival of their own. But both types of people, the different characteristics, whether they have a passive communication style or they tend to have some people-pleasing tendencies, they struggle to find their voice and they tend to be more kind of they let abuse continue and they continue to have that be something that they maybe blame themselves for or make excuses for the individual who is abusive. So what can help with that is to have assertive communication, communicate our needs, communicate with people. Hey, that violated my boundaries. Hey, it's not okay to treat me like that. If it's something that's a very clear boundary violation, if it's more of a boundary crossing, it's still definitely important to communicate boundary crossings, but it might be communicated in a more gentle way, maybe expressing an emotion such as, mm, I felt hurt when you yelled at me because it reminded me from the past when somebody else yelled at me, or because it made me feel small, or because it isn't okay to yell. So it could just be an I feel statement is communicated when someone crosses a boundary versus when someone clearly violates your boundary. That needs to be a very clear, assertive voice that that behavior was not acceptable, will not be tolerated, and unfortunately they can't be a part of your life anymore. It helps us to work through the people pleasing part by focusing on our own garden. Instead of spending all of our time in other people's gardens, we focus on tending our own. When we prioritize our garden, we create a flourishing environment where others can visit and enjoy the vibrant blooms and blossoms of all the flowers that we planted. Or if your garden is a vegetable garden, then people can enjoy the fruits of your labor. You can have dinner together. All right, well, that's it for today. Our activity for the week is I highly encourage you to read this book, especially if you struggle with setting boundaries. It's simply called Boundaries: When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life, and it's by doctors Henry Cloud and John Townsend. It's the gold standard of setting boundaries with other people. It is very Christian based. I tend to give everyone a heads up. There's a lot of Bible verses in it. Even if you are of a different faith than Christianity, the book still has significant value. It's still the gold standard of boundaries. If you are a Christian and enjoy Christian learning, is definitely a great book, but again, even if you're not Christian, it's still a fantastic book to read to learn about setting boundaries with the important people in our life because we want to improve those relationships and connections and keep them going. We want to have those emotionally safe sort of relationships, whether it's friendships, relationships with family, friends, coworkers. We need to set boundaries with everyone in our life to nurture those relationships. As far as our intention for the week goes, create an intention to prioritize your well being over the desire to please others. Practice saying no to something that does not align with your vision for yourself, and say yes to something that sparks joy. So maybe you say no to a concert that someone invites you to because it's not really your type of music, but you say yes to going out to dinner beforehand with them because that brings you joy. Then our weekly reflection that we'll practice together. Close your eyes and take some slow, deep breaths, allowing the rhythm of the breath to guide you. Imagine yourself approaching the secret garden of your heart. Take a moment to observe the fence that encircles the sacred space. Open the gate and walk inside along the path. What do you observe inside? What flowers, greenery, and other landscaping are present? Who are the companions you invited to share in this experience? What emotions do you feel while basking in the garden's beauty? Perhaps you notice serenity, joy, or a sense of belonging. Remember, you can return to this inner sanctuary at any time to evoke those feelings. Then, to enhance your experience, you can create a detailed drawing of your internal garden. So So go ahead and open your eyes. Come back. Excuse me. And you can go ahead and put any questions about boundaries in the comments, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. During our next episode, we'll be discussing grounding affirmations. I'm excited about sharing that one as well. All right. And on that note, I do have one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you briefly. I have a 6-week course going on right now called Awakening Tranquility. And that is in starting week 4 already. So what Awakening Tranquility is it's, like I said, a 6-week course where we work on lots of different aspects of creating peace in our life. So like the first week, we talked about stress, the body stress response, the nervous system. We've talked about mindfulness. We've talked about some stress reducing techniques. And then this week, we're building on that and talking about some stress reduction. Um, we're focusing on radical acceptance and then some other ways to manage stress, mindfulness, those types of things. So I hope that you can join me for Awakening Tranquility. That is exclusively for the um, paid subscribers to Hopeaced Together. So if you'd like to upgrade to participate in the remainder of that course, you do have access to all of my videos that I recorded in the material, what I wrote about each topic. So go ahead and just click the subscribe button, and that will allow you to become a paid subscriber. All right, well, I hope to see you in these last few weeks of Awakening Tranquility. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today for Mondays with Michelle. I appreciate you taking the time to discuss mental health, relationships, and parenting. I'm sending you peace and hope until next time. Thanks so much, friends. Have a good week.